Okay, how is the script analyzed? First of all, you have to understand the story to understand how the lighting is going to play a role in the story. So, the first thing you have to do is you have to read the script for understanding of the story, for understanding of the characters, settings, themes, turning points, relationships, all that stuff. All that analysis you may have done in high school English class of plays and novels and books and stuff. That's the kind of analysis you want to be doing when you read the script for the first time. You want to be thinking about the story, thinking about how all the elements of the story work together, because you need to understand it to understand how the lighting is going to play into that. And you might be able to exploit some of those things that you learn about the elements of the story in the lighting. So that's very important. The second time you read the script, you're going to read it for lighting specific notes. And I'll show you what some of those notes might be that you would be taking as you read it the second time. Some, you don't have to do this in two separate readings, but it's a good idea, because the first time you're not worrying about lighting at all. Don't even think about it. Don't worry about it at all. The second time you'll start thinking about how the lighting is going to play into all that. It's hard to do that. It's hard to keep that separation each time you read it, but it's a good idea to try to do it. Because you'll get more out of understanding the story if you're trying not to think about the lighting, or if you're just concentrating on the story. Next, you're going to review the script with the director for production-specific notes. Production-specific notes are extremely important. Are things really being done the way it says in the script? Where are the actors actually going to be? You have to review the script with the director, because the director might be changing things, a lot of things, maybe very significant things. So production-specific notes are very, very important. And then last, you're going to develop some sort of analytical synopsis of the scenes, something, whatever you use to keep track of the order of the scenes, and to analyze what is important about those scenes, both in terms of the story, the mood, and the lighting. So you need to develop some sort of synopsis that allows you to refer to that information easily throughout the whole design process. Maybe you can do that right out of your script. Maybe you want to put it in another form, or do it some other way. So I'll show you what I actually did for My Fair Lady. Okay, so these are my script notes, my initial script notes for My Fair Lady. What kinds of production-specific notes showed up here? Well, let's see. Extreme 4-stage corners. The servant choir is going to be in the extreme 4-stage corners, all the way downstage on each side of the stage for this particular point. That is not something that's written in the script. That's a production-specific note. If I don't go through the script and talk with the director, I'm not going to know that until I happen to stumble into that rehearsal or see the actors doing it. I'm not going to know that that's how that's being done. And I need to know that because I might have to have special lights just for that. Another thing here. We're going to do a blackout at the end of this part. That's not in the script either. That's a production-specific note. It's something that the director and I discussed, and we determined that the best way to play this scene with the lighting was to put the servant choir in the downstage corners and to do a blackout after the end of this stanza of singing. That's production specific. You have to have that meeting. You have to go through it with the director. Another thing I'm doing when I'm reading the script for lighting notes is I'm getting an idea where I want motivated cues and where there are motivated cues and where there are unmotivated cues. So MC, that's motivated cue. Basically, a motivated cue is something that is called for in the script. So right here, script says blackout. That's a motivated cue. An unmotivated cue, this one here you would actually probably call unmotivated because we added this blackout, but unmotivated is something that's not specifically called for in the script. So the transition into maybe a song, the script isn't going to say the lighting should change from this state to this state, it should go from cool to warm, it should change color, whatever. The script isn't going to say that, but you might want to do something there. So at that point I would note there's going to be some sort of unmotivated cue right here, and I would mark that down in the script. One other comment I just want to make, I took a scene design class, and while I was taking it I learned that the notes in the script, the stage directions in the script, like right here, sing at left stage, were not necessarily put in the script by the author of the script, by the playwright. They may have been put in the script by the stage manager of the opening production of the show. So really, the first time you read the show, anyone involved in the show, the first time they read it, you should completely disregard the stage directions in addition to not thinking about lighting notes or whatever, because the stage directions were created for the opening show, and they're going to affect your ideas about things if you're reading them. So ignore the stage directions the first time you read the script. Okay, so those were my script notes, just an excerpt from my script notes. What I did for, this is what I did for my scene analysis, my analytical synopsis. For each scene, I went through and summarized the way that scene is going to be lit. Primary source of light are lamps located around the study. Late morning, not really relevant to this scene because it starts in total darkness. So I'm making notes about how that scene is lit, about where it takes place, about things like that. And then everything below this is basically a summary of the action, a summary of how the lighting might play into it. So in this particular scene, it's mostly a summary of the action, the summary of the important action, because starting to think about the script descriptively will help imagine the way you want it to be lit. So that's what this step is all about. Analyzing the scenes for lighting, it's all about starting to imagine the way you want the scene to be lit. Imagining what it means for the study to be lit. How do you want the study to be lit? So that's what you need to start doing once you've read the script. Just for basic notes, you need to do some sort of analysis to start imagining what you want it to look like. Okay, next, image research. This is something that we did in scene design class a lot, because in scene design you are obviously designing the set. You're designing something physical. But image research is good for lighting as well, because lighting isn't really a physical medium, so it helps to have images to help convey what you're thinking for different scenes in terms of lighting, and also just to educate yourself about where the show is taking place and things like that. So these are some images that I found for My Fair Lady. This is a sunset over London, and gave me some ideas about how I like the look of this, and I would like the scenes outside of Higgins' house on the street. Two of those scenes take place right about sunset time. So if I could create any look I wanted to, it would be something like this. It starts to give you an idea about how you want the lighting, the direction you want the lighting to go. This one right here isn't in color, but it gives you an idea about the type of environment that the flower market is, and maybe about how it would be lit, about what that environment would look like. A ballroom, trying to get an idea about the quality of a light in a ballroom, about light from chandeliers, things like that, and an idea about what the garden environment might look like. So It's just a basis for starting to get an idea, or to help you imagine the light, to help communicate that to other people. You might, if you're particularly talented, you might draw pictures. You could draw pictures to illustrate what you're thinking for different scenes, or maybe computer renderings or whatever. But just the point right now is that we're just trying to imagine the lighting without constraints, not thinking about what the limitations are, just imagining the way you would want the scene to be lit. Okay, so next, it's not all about the script. It's important, especially in something, in a musical, to listen to recordings of the music. Don't just read the lyrics in the script, because that really doesn't tell you anything, especially if you've never done the show before, about the energy of the music, about what it really feels like and things like that. The same thing goes for watching rehearsals, to notate the flow of the action. Watching the rehearsal is the easiest way to see where people are going, and it's also a good way to establish a feeling for the energy of each scene and the musical numbers. Even if you listen to a recording of the music, actually watching the actors perform the musical number is going to give you a much better idea about what it really feels like, the energy, all that sort of thing. This kind of depends on how the show goes, your ability to watch rehearsals. For this production of My Fair Lady, I really didn't get to watch any rehearsals until basically we were installing the lighting. So I didn't have the luxury of being able to watch rehearsals and get all this kind of information up ahead of time. So hopefully you do. Maybe, it is possible. Obviously, it's possible to still design lighting and do it very well without ideal conditions, without being able to see everything. But if a show is really put together, if it's really, the schedule is really ideal, and it's kind of more professional, then you're going to have the opportunity to watch rehearsals as the scenes are being developed and things like that. So really, this whole thing, watching rehearsals, just depends on how your particular show is going in terms of the schedule. And again, conduct research for desirable images, both for imagining the lighting and for just filling in, gaps in your own knowledge about where the show takes place and that sort of thing. Okay, we've talked about how the script is analyzed. Now let's talk about how the set affects the lighting. We're going to talk about it now because we're going to basically assume that the set is already designed. Coming into this process, we're going to assume that we're handed the set design and told this is what the set is. So, how does the set affect the lighting? Well, it influences the production concept. Obviously, it's contributing to the production concept, so we have to keep that in mind. It establishes location and time. So, for example, a particular time or maybe weather might be shown on a painted backdrop. If a painted backdrop shows a dark, stormy sky, you are going to need to light the scene using that backdrop in a way that's consistent with what's shown on that backdrop. It determines where the actors may go. That's a huge one. In this production of My Fair Lady, we had a 2-story study, and the library was on the 2nd floor. So that means that there are going to be actors 10 feet off the ground. So that's something that the set design has, obviously a huge impact on where the actors go. Creates physical or aesthetic obstacles. Height of the scenery might affect lighting angles. We kind of saw how that would come into play in the lighting section on that side view of the stage. That's where we were worried about clearances, so physical obstacles. aesthetic obstacles. Maybe the colors of the scenery elements don't really fit with what you had wanted to use in terms of color for the lights. Incorporates lighting to varying degrees. Maybe you're doing a minimalist set and the lighting is playing also kind of a scenic role, or the scenery is becoming more dependent on the lighting. So in that case, the lighting and the scene design process need to go together hand in hand a little more. Professional set design usually the way that usually works is the set designer is hired and they design the set, they produce all the drawings necessary to construct it, all that sort of thing, and depending on how much that scenery needs to integrate with the lighting, or how much that show integrates the scenery with the lighting, will determine how those two, set and lighting, work together. But in general, a professional set designer is going to be aware that they need to keep certain spaces available for lights. That if they put a ceiling on their the room that makes up the set, how are we going to light it from above? So the professional scene designer knows that when they do that, they're going to create lighting problems. So they'll have to discuss that with the lighting designer. Okay, note here, this is why it's important to develop and agree upon a set design well before construction begins. So this is more for this production of My Fair Lady, a high school level production, something that's less professional. You need to produce rough renderings and drawings at the very least, so that everyone involved in the production can work efficiently toward the goals set forth by the production team. So you need drawings so people know what's being built. It's that simple. And a good drawing to do that is a rendering like this. This is, for this particular production, I was heavily involved in the set design. I produced the renderings and the drawings of the set. Ideally, when you come in to design lights for a show, you're going to either be handed the set design by a set designer, or you're going to work with them. You're not going to be doing both. So hopefully it works that way if you design a show. But this is a rendering of the Covent Garden scene from My Fair Lady, of our set for this show. This kind of rendering is important for conveying the scenic concept to everybody involved in the set. So when they're building, they have this rendering to look at and to see how the set is supposed to be constructed. So, this isn't very detailed, obviously. It doesn't include, how should these things be painted and whatnot. If it were professional scene design, all those drawings would be included. The drawings that say how everything should be painted and all that sort of thing. But this is just fundamental importance. You need something so that everyone knows what the goal is during construction. This rendering was made using Vectorworks. It's a CAD program for the computer. Very good for set design. My scene design class, we did hand drafting, and it's good to take hand drafting to understand how it works and to appreciate computer drafting much more. But basically, Vectorworks is just really good for visualizing scenery like this, building scenery, doing the drawings, and it's also what we're going to use to do the lighting design as well. So we'll take a look at Vectorworks more later. So this is for showing everyone what we're building. This drawing is more for technical purposes, and it's used to determine and illustrate where the scenery is going to be placed, and basically how the lighting is going to be affected. So we can see, how far back from the proscenium opening is this thing being placed, what kind of spaces are between them. These lines here are our pipes over the stage. Do we have clearance if we need to bring this pipe in? Things like that. A view like this, looking straight down of the scenery, lets us figure all that stuff out. And it's very hard. It can be very hard to figure that kind of stuff out if you don't have something like this to look at. Another thing to keep in mind is that when working with a director or working with other people, they may not be able to visualize things this way very easily. This drawing view, this looking down at the stage. So that might present some obstacles. You might have to do some work on the stage with the director and this drawing. So you can actually show them, how much space do we mean? How much space are we talking about? Why does this have to be this far back? Things like that. So this type of view of the scenery is very important for both scenery and lighting, because it determines where things are. It shows where everything is going to go. And that brings us to this note. This is a photo where we're positioning the scenery for the first time on the stage for My Fair Lady, and the point here is that if you don't position the scenery according to those drawings that you produced, there's no point in having produced the drawings in the first place. So when the scenery actually it's time to put it on stage and to mark where it's supposed to be, you need to do it according to the drawings. That way, we aren't creating a whole bunch of other problems in the process. So, we've talked about how the script's analyzed, and we've talked about how the set affects the lighting. So that concludes this second section. We've started to introduce the idea of looking at the script, of imagining the way we want the lighting to be, and also of getting an idea. We've also been getting an idea how other parts of the show, specifically the set, how the set affects the lighting and how it's going to affect things from this point forward.